The Advent season is a very special season in the Christian calendar and the Christian year. I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but several months ago here in the Mississippi Annual Conference, we held a conference called Collaborative Leadership. And during that time, we made a commitment that we would work very hard to helping our churches to understand that in order for us to really truly fulfill the mission of the Lord, and that is to make disciples of Jesus Christ who would transform the world, that we would commit ourselves to clergy and laity becoming teams, working together for the good of the kingdom. Now, I recognize with all sincerity that saying that doesn't make that happen, and that sometimes moving into new paradigms and doing things in different ways really does call for a conversion to take place in our lives. We are taught, particularly through Jesus and even through our founder, John Wesley, that when there are things in our lives that we need God to help us to move, that one of the works of piety that can help us to do that is through practicing the spiritual discipline of fasting and praying, those two disciplines of fasting and praying and combining them together. Some of you may remember that in the scriptures there was an episode where a young boy was brought to the disciples, and they tried very hard to help that young boy who was caught and troubled by an evil spirit, and they couldn't do it. Finally, they brought the boy to Jesus, and when Jesus laid hands on the boy and prayed for him, the spirit was cast away from him. And the disciples looked at Jesus with this very puzzled look, as if to say, now how were you able to do that when we were not? And Jesus said, this kind of thing only happens through fasting and through prayer, which teaches us that sometimes there are things that are a part of our lives that we cannot remove simply by wishing and hoping, and not even by learning. Sometimes we have to have a total transformation, and it takes place best in a time of fasting and prayer. And so during this season of Advent, when we talk about coming, because Advent is a time of living in expectancy, of Jesus breaking into our world, of Jesus coming, I want to challenge us here in the Mississippi Conference to begin to fast and pray about this new coming of team ministry, where clergy and laity do not see each other as competitors, but as complementary players in this ministry that God has called us to, and that is the making of disciples who then go out and transform the world. And this can only happen if you and I have this tremendous transformation experience. And so during Advent, as we are expectantly waiting for the coming of the Christ, we also want to expectantly wait for this coming of a new attitude about how we go about doing ministry, no longer competing, us against them, but us, we, all in this together. And it can only happen as we allow the power of God to transform us. And so over the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing a series. It's not going to be very long, just a few, as a friend of mine used to call them, sermonettes, to warm you up to the Advent season, but to remind you that while we are also living in this season of expectancy, we also want to be fasting, and we also want to be praying that the Lord will come and be with us as we struggle around how we can become team together, so it really truly will be the power of we.